Are you ready for the best damn radio show on the planet? Man Hour Nation, rise up.
You don't want to be every time, no. I would like to personally welcome you to Man Hour After Dark. Say that thing. Why I bring you the host, Mike, Buck, and Cone. You know who's coming to the stage. Sports talk than what you about to hear right here. I second that. Go. You know that it's us when we talking about sports. Giving you facts on the field to the core. Tune in, we need the support. 1 hour too short, still listen some more. On all your stations, not dropping no music. Starts like Adidas, but Nike just do it. Down 4 in the 4th, we go for the win. Michael 2 seconds, we taking it in. Buck, Mike, and Combs, you know what's going on. Man, now we're After Dark, no LA, we the big spark. No 4th and inches, won't cut short. Got the best talking, it's all sports. Buzzing more than buzzer beaters. We coming live, all 3 speakers go.
And what is going on, Man Hour Nation? It's your boy, Brandon Combs, along with Ryan Fitz. We're not doing any of those introductions today because I'm pissed off, man. Dude, what did we just watch?
You gotta laugh. You gotta laugh a little bit to keep from crying.
I don't know what we just saw. Look,
that's the kind of intensity you need to be a pro. You can see when the intensity has been lost. I mean, where's the team? I know there's some guys hurt. Like, they don't have Mooney. They don't have a lot of guys on the line. I mean, they've lost guys on defense, but where's that team that kicked the crap out of the Patriots?
Yeah, and where is it's not even, look, this season, and I said this at the beginning of the season, I see Luke G here. He's a big Detroit Lions fan. Luke G's Luke G's field review. Check it out. He does a Lions show. He talks about the Lions, but he's very realistic about his team. We've got into it a couple times. This what I am watching, it's not even so much because this wasn't about wins or losses for me this season. It wasn't. It was about growth. I knew they weren't even a playoff team. I knew that I said that they were probably a 6 to 7 win team. I knew they weren't that 3 to 5 win team that everybody was talking about, but clearly I was wrong and they were right because this team just quit. There was Justin Fields and probably I would say maybe 3 players total are the only ones who showed up this week. They're the only ones that showed up. Everybody else they're either already on the golf course. They're not playing ball. They're whatever happened, whatever we watched today was atrocious. And I try to put it into perspective, right? Because we know right now they're in position for the second pick in the draft. Even though they're probably going to trade that second pick in the draft, that's where they're in position for. And I wasn't expecting much out of it, but I want to see some fight. Show some fight. Show that you want to be there. Show that the game matters to you.
In football, it's one of those sports where you can show that too. It's not like baseball where you actually have to calm down to play, which I believe you do in baseball. I mean, there is some intensity you need to have in that sport, but
and if you need a reason to get up for the game,
if
you need a reason to get up for the game, you're playing a division rival that you could potentially knock out of the playoffs.
That and you want to have a career in football, right?
Yeah.
There's only a few guys playing out there. I don't know why Justin Fields is still playing. I mean, I think 2 or 3 games ago it made sense. And the broadcasters try to make the argument at the end of the game, like, keep him in. You have to keep him in. He has to learn. Yeah, with 4 or 5 games left, he does. 1 game, what are you going to learn from 1 game? I mean, or 1.5 games. At halftime, they should have sat him down. He was obviously hurt. I mean, I don't know what they're thinking. And for Ryan Poles, I mean, this has got to be his first failure to not really have much confidence in a quarterback that was drafted pretty high, and a lot of people were pretty high on. Has a cannon for an arm and can run. You didn't build anything around this kid. I mean,
he
didn't have a lot to work with.
He tried though, didn't he, with Claypool? Didn't he try? Like, he went and traded for Chase Claypool. He tried to do he tried to salvage something that we already knew wasn't there, right? Like we knew that
Lucas
even with Chase
Patrick,
Claypool
though.
coming on, that wasn't that big of a deal. And Luke G says the Bears only have Brisker on defense. I disagree with that. Like I like Gordon, I really
Jalen
do. Johnson, yeah, they've got some guys on defense that once you put some more talent around them, they're going to be good. And they could do. I mean, look, $116 million in cap space. The future for the Bears, even though we're looking at a 3-14 season, because they're not going to win next week. Let's just face it. I mean, I would be surprised. Next week is probably a late, preseason game, right? Where your starters might play a quarter, and then you're going to see what you have else because you want to see who's going to have a chance, right?
For next season, yeah, that makes sense.
I don't
even start Justin
your brother
Fields
chimes
next
in.
week.
Hey, he finally comes at me. Like he's not coming at you about your lack of swag this week. So it's about mine.
A point.
Hey, look, sometimes I have Cubs hats, sometimes I have Bears hats. I wore a Notre Dame hat a couple weeks ago. God,
he's very visual.
Yeah. He's a visual kind of guy. Look, I don't think that the Bears are in a bad way. I don't. 3-13 now. They're going to finish the season 3-14. The Bears are what everybody thought they were at this point, except for me. I thought they were a little bit better on paper than what people were giving them credit for, and I was wrong. And I have no problem admitting I was wrong.
See, I don't think you were that off. I mean, they lost a couple of those games by, Mooney catches a ball.
Yeah.
St. Brown catches a ball. They're a 5-win team. Look,
you've got to win that game against the Washington Commanders.
Yeah.
You've got to win a couple other games there. You should have beat Green Bay a couple weeks ago, but you decided to take the second half off and just take the ball out of the one playmaker's hands that you have. They are shut up, Luke G. I see you in the comments. Just shut up. They are that team, and they beat us by 1 in the first game. That's another game that the Bears.
I have no confidence in Jared Goff. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I have no confidence in Jared Goff. I don't. I mean, maybe Luke G does, but he is playing. This is the best year he's had. But there is players on that team. That Aiden Hutchinson, that Gale Lawrence.
Dude, he's a stud, isn't he, man? Aiden Hutchinson, dude, I would love to have that guy on my team.
Thing, man. If you can do that with a defensive end, spy on probably the top 5 best runner, definitely the best running quarterback in the league, but top 5 best runner in the league, period.
Yeah.
He did that to him. He kind of did that to Justin Fields last game, even though Justin Fields had 100 yards rushing.
Do you think Braxton Jones is a part of the future?
I think he's a great backup right tackle.
I'm with you.
Maybe.
I'm with you.
That's what all these guys become, except for maybe Tevin Jenkins if you keep Whitehair. I mean,
yeah. I think Tevin Jenkins, if you can keep him healthy, Tevin Jenkins is scaring me with the injuries. But I really like the kid on the field.
Mm-hmm.
Braxton Jones, to me, is one of those guys that you have to replace. You can't go into Braxton Jones next year being one of your starting tackles. And I heard him on the broadcast today talk about how the Bears felt like he could be, the future for them at the tackle position on that offensive line. I don't see that. I don't see that at all. I see a lot of bad mistakes, a lot of mental mistakes. His number gets called on about 3 or 4 penalties a season, or a game, I should say. And I don't think that Braxton Jones is a guy that you can say is a part of your future as a starter. Now, a very viable backup, a guy who can come in for about 8 to 10 plays a game to give a guy a breather or something like that. That's the type of guy that Braxton Jones is. But I
think there's room for growth there, though. He didn't go to a big school. He wasn't always a tackle. I mean, they throw him in here against professionals, and he had a few good games. I mean, not against guys like this, but
do they, John? John chimes in, these players are professionals. They want to be out there playing. These teams need to compete every week, regardless of the record. They didn't want to be out there today. I didn't see. I saw, like I said, maybe
A couple
4
guys.
players that wanted to be out there today. I saw 4 guys who were professionals and who showed up for work today. Everybody else was already figuring out where they're going. It's like that movie. What was that movie where the players are on the bench and they're talking about the girls in the stands and the coach is like, "Oh, it was a miracle."
Yeah.
They're talking about the girls in the stands and they're losing a game, and then after the game, what's to say? The coach has them, do laps for about 3 hours after that tough loss. This team did not show up. This team quit. This team, they're done. I mean, and look, they weren't going anywhere anyway, but this team quit, and they quit today. It showed. I don't know how else to put it. This team was terrible today.
Yeah, I mean it was bad. I mean, even when the broadcasters are calling it out, and these are guys who are usually rah-rah fans of teams and will usually back players to a fault. I mean, even they were saying like they're walking back to the huddle, like they're not even like they didn't even care. There were a couple guys on defense. Obviously, Justin Fields came to play. I mean, it looked like, I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say their offensive line came to play because that was pretty bad. You did have a couple injuries. I mean, you did, I guess, but I mean, I just think in the end, I mean, I think my brother does have a point that the coaches do have to get them ready to play, and guys should be ready to play at their pros every game. And I think Justin Fields, actually, my sister, who's not much of she's not a huge football fan, but she called me and ranted for 20 minutes that they should take Justin Fields out.
I didn't understand that.
But I think he wants to try for the record, and I think he wants to play.
I get it, but you have to protect him from himself at that point.
Yes.
Because you're watching this guy run ragged. They can't protect him. They can't. I mean, anytime that they do get in protection, his receivers can't get open, and he ends up having to run anyway. But you've got to protect him from himself. This kid is the future of your football team, the future of your organization. This guy is the guy that can lead you to the promised land if you build around him correctly. All these people out there, and I'm on this page on Facebook called I Am Bear Cessed, and I'm arguing with fans on a daily basis about Justin Fields. Oh, Justin Fields can't throw. That's the stupidest argument I've ever seen in my life. The dumbest argument is the perception that he can't throw. Mm-hmm. He can throw. The problem is, 1, he doesn't have time to throw. 2, he doesn't have any weapons to throw to. And 3, by the time he steps back into his second step, he's got to tuck the ball and run. And it's a weekly thing for this Bears team. So I don't believe that the Bears were ever going to compete this year. I don't believe that they were trying to win games. I don't believe they tried to win that Green Bay game in the second half. I don't believe they tried to win last week. I damn sure don't believe they tried to win this week. My problem is that they quit. The players quit this week, and that's what bothers me. So
I'm usually not a guy who says a players quit because I think they're playing for themselves too. I mean, they want to stay in this league. Almost all of them do, but it looked like they quit. I mean, it really did, especially in football. I mean, you quit in football, you can get your head ripped off, but guys don't want to be injured in the offseason. I'll tell you that. I mean, that's what it kind of looked like. Guys not wanting to get injured for the offseason. You don't want to separate a shoulder and be, 8 weeks of your offseason is down the tubes.
Rehabbing. Yeah. Yep. So the Bears right now, as it is, sit in the second spot for the draft, right? And I have been for months now. I have been if the Bears are sitting at the second pick, and if they do not trade the pick, their pick absolutely positively has to be Quentin Johnston from TCU, the wide receiver. And everybody's been all over me. Oh, they got to do this. They've got to do that. You got to go out and get offensive linemen. You've got to go out and get the best defensive player that you can. The best edge rusher that's available needs to be a Bear with the second pick in the draft. And I've heard
Is that
all
how
this.
I sound in your mind?
No, it's not just you. It's all these people on the, like I said, on the I Am Bear Cest page. You, I mean, your brother, like all these people talking about, oh, they've got. This team has $116 million in cap space. And what I watched Quentin Johnston do last night against Michigan, some of these catches he made, and you and I were talking during the game, this kid has great hands. Yeah. He's got plus speed. He's 6'6". He's 215, right? You go into free agency. That's where you address the offensive line and the defense and the edge rusher and all of that stuff, because you cannot go into this draft and have Quentin Johnston end up in Green Bay or Detroit or any of these other places that you're going to have to watch this kid play against like we do already in Minnesota. This kid needs to be a part of your team, because what you're not going to get in free agency is a 6'6" wide receiver, 215 with good hands and plus speed. You're not going to get that. Now, you get people come at me, oh, you go get Juju Smith-Schuster. You can go get some veteran guys out there that – no. I've seen that product. I've seen Juju Smith-Schuster. There's a reason why he's going to be available again, okay? I've seen the guys who are there, Jacoby Myers. I don't want Jacoby Myers. I don't want another guy who is the same guy that we have right now as our number one wide receiver, who should be a slot receiver. I want a true number one wide receiver. The rest of the stuff we can address in free agency. You can address offensive tackle with Orlando Brown or Mike McGlinchey from the 49ers, who's only 28 years old. You can address defensive tackle with Draymond Jones, who's 26, who's going to be a free agent from Denver, or with Javon Hargrave from Philadelphia, who's 30.
Going to be free agents, though.
They are,
that's the problem.
They're going to
got it with Juju Schuster. There's a reason why he's on the board all the time. I mean, there is a reason for that, because they're not as good. I mean, I don't think a lot of teams get rid of left tackles and edge rushers or defensive tackles who could play the 3 technique. I just don't think a lot of teams let those guys go if they don't have to. They'll let off the ball guys go. They'll let a cornerback go. They'll let even a safety go. But those guys,
if you've got $116 million in cap space, there's guys. Orlando Brown's going to hit free agency. He's got the agent. He's got the Scott Boras of football as his agent. He's going to free agency. He's going to make his money. Okay, you've got the Darren Payne from Washington, a defensive tackle who's already asked to get out of Washington, asked for a trade before the season. He's going to go to free agency.
No, they can't pay him there in Washington. No.
Yeah, so you can address these guys because you've got so much cap space. What you can't get is the one guy that I'm saying you can get in the draft. You're going to be in position to do it. Now, you can still trade the number 2 pick and move down to 5 or 6 and still probably be able to get Quentin Johnston, right? Because you're going to have a quarterback go at 1. You're going to have a quarterback go at 2 after you trade it. And then the 2 defensive players are going to come off the board. You move down to 5, you move down to 6, whatever it's got to be. You get yourself some draft capital and you grab yourself Quentin Johnston, because I'm telling you right now, if they don't do this, we're going to be having this conversation next year. And we're going to be like, man, imagine if the Bears had Quentin Johnston. We're going to be having this conversation because we're going to be watching him light it up somewhere else. And God forbid it be in Green Bay, or God forbid it be in Detroit, because we already have to see what's going on in Minnesota.
Green Bay or Detroit, he ain't going to fall that much. After that game last night, just gave him a big rookie payday. He's going to be in the top 10, and neither of those teams are going to be in the top 10. So I don't think, unless they trade up, which I don't think will happen. I mean,
they had 198 yards passing. He had 168 yards receiving.
I don't know if there's a lot of receivers in college football who could make that screen pass into a touchdown either. I mean, those long strides are something. It's just, you can have Justin Jefferson, you can have Quentin Jackson, you can have Tyreek Hill, you can have all these guys, but with this offensive line, it ain't going to make a bit of difference. It is not going to make a difference with this offensive line. He has no time. He has tackles getting thrown into him. That's how he got hurt. Or you could say he got a little hurt maybe on that run, but that looked like a cramp or maybe just a tweak. But he got his own tackle thrown into him. Like, it's It's
So
really
so are
bad.
you
I mean,
are you
I'm
on the
sick.
Jalen Carter, Will Anderson train then? You want either Jalen Carter or Will Anderson, the defensive end from Alabama, Jalen Carter, the defensive tackle from Georgia, or do you want them to go out and get offensive line help? Like what do you want them to go do? Because I'm looking at I look at the draft too, and I start to look at, all right, who's going to be available? What am I going to get? If I'm picking at 2, right? Who's available? Am I going out to get Peter Skoronski, the offensive tackle from Northwestern? Am I going out? Am I getting Will Anderson, the defensive end from Alabama?
I think with the number 2 pick, they got to trade down. I think with just the holes on this team, there's just too many. And yes, if Quentin Jackson falls to like 8, 7, 8, wherever they're trading down to, that's fine. Fixes the Bears' problems, but yeah, he
He doesn't look. He doesn't fix it solely, but he gives them a number 1 wide receiver. He gives them their Justin Jefferson, Jalen Waddle, that type of receiver.
Is that
Guy
a
who's
100%? Is that a 100%? Because Kevin White was supposed to come in here and do that.
I can tell you 100% you're not going to get that on the free agent market.
Did Quentin Jackson play all their games? Did he play in all their games this year? No, he didn't. He was hurt for at least a couple of games.
Right, and they're a run first team as well. They don't pass the ball a ton.
No, they don't. And they have a running quarterback. I mean, that Dugan can run too.
Yes.
Yeah. But he did miss some games this year. What if he gets hurt? Yeah, trade that pick. I like Jeremiah Murray. I know you're going to say this is nuts. John wants a left tackle. I wouldn't even be mad about that if they trade down. I don't want a left tackle at 2. But if they trade down, I don't mind a left tackle either. I want an edge rusher,
6 or 7.
I want an edge rusher. I want an edge rusher or a 3 technique tackle. I mean, that guy from Georgia, I forget his name, I'm blanking on his name, but that is one giant moving machine there. And I think if you trade down, and I know this is crazy, but there was rumors, and I don't know if I'm in for this. I haven't really given it much thought, but there's some people saying they might trade down, get the 9th pick or 8th pick, wherever the Raiders are, and get Devontae Adams. He is 30. That's a problem.
See,
that is a number 1 wide receiver for the next 2 or 3 years.
Devontae Adams is, but like you said, for the next 2 or 3 seasons.
Yeah.
Right? You're not going to the Super Bowl next year. You have to be we're not going to the Super Bowl next year.
No.
Right? So to go get it's just, that would be a Bears thing to do. It would be. It would be a Bears thing to do.
Pick next year, though, too, probably. You're probably going to get the Raiders either 1st or 2nd round pick next year, something like that. Then you have more draft capital in the next draft.
Marcus Davenport is available from the Saints, defensive end. He's only 26, 27 years old. He's going to be a free agent this season. You have got so many things that you can get out of free agency. And I know that not all of these guys are going to end up being free agents. I know some of their teams are going to re-sign them or whatever the case is going to be. But I know for certain that if you pass on wide receivers, if you don't go get Quentin Johnson or even what's his face in Jigba from Alabama, as another wide receiver that they could go get. Not
Marvin
as big,
Harrison Jr.
Not as fast. Marvin Harrison Jr. is not he won't be in the draft till next year.
Oh yeah, you're right about that.
So if you don't go get a number 1 wide receiver, I already know that there's not one available in free agency.
No.
You know what I mean? So why wouldn't you use your draft pick to get the one thing that you can't get in free agency? That's what I don't understand about. The good thing about the NFL is that the free agency comes before the draft. So that's the good thing. We're going to know what the Bears are planning before the draft. Now, if you go there and if I see them go out there and I see them sign Jacoby Myers or I see them sign Juju Smith-Schuster, Odell Beckham, some other wide receivers that are out there that make me want to vomit when I think about having them as a number 1 wide receiver. You go out and get those guys and maybe then we'll know, hey, look, they're not picking a wide receiver in the draft. I already know that. But I don't, as I'm looking at Funky Lions fans saying, I'm rooting for the Vikings. I am too. The only thing that can make me feel better about today and what I watched and how the Bears quit is watching the Packers get eliminated from the playoffs.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
That would be the only thing that would make today feel a little bit better. But I don't think that you can go what you're going to get out of the draft, what you can get out of the draft because of the position that you're in. I don't think you can look at that and say, hey, look, if we've got an opportunity to take a guy with number one wide receiver talent, a guy with Justin Jefferson type talent or Jalen Waddle type talent, I don't know how you could pass that up. And I don't know how, as a Bears fan, you could say that you wouldn't want that. Like, to me, it just, because it makes too much sense. All the other stuff that you can address via free agency, it makes too much sense to want to go that route, because you already know that no matter what they do in free agency, no matter whether it's Jacoby Myers, Juju Smith-Schuster, any other free agent wide receiver that's going to be out there, they're not going to be that much better at the wide receiver position through free agency. The only way they get better right now at the wide receiver position is in the draft.
Or trade.
Who's going to trade you a number one wide receiver?
The Raiders.
The Broncos?
The Raiders. The Broncos.
Maybe go get Jerry Jeudy.
Yeah.
But short of that, but yes. So yes, if you go through trade, you can get some proven, number one wide receiver. If you can go get Jerry Jeudy, if you can go, Devontae Adams is look. I love Devontae. I think he, heading into this year, was the best wide receiver in football. I would have had him number one in my rankings of wide receivers heading into this season. Now that list has changed a bunch, but heading into the season, so he would be a nice piece. But that would be a nice piece if the Bears were one wide receiver away from being a Super Bowl contender. They're not. They don't need a guy who can be around for 2 to 3 years to try to get into a Super Bowl once or twice. They need a guy who's going to be here for 5 to 6 years so that they can get that window, because their window is 2 to 3 seasons from now. It's not next year. Jeremiah Murray says, how about Hopkins? He'll be cheaper than Adams. See, that's another guy, though. The age there. Yeah. Why do we want a 29 to 30-year-old wide receiver when you can go out and get a kid coming straight out of college who has the talent and could probably be what they are 5 to 6 years from now anyway?
Well, you're paying Justin Fields in 2 or 3 years. You kind of don't want that to overlap. This is the only way it does make sense. Is Devontae Adams is 2 or 3 years from basically being out of the league, maybe having a couple more years after that, but he's not going to get a big paycheck again. So his numbers come off the books almost when Justin Fields is getting paid. Maybe they overlap for 1 year. You bring in a really good number one as a rookie, their contracts are going to overlap eventually, and you're going to lose him in 4 years. I don't know. I just think so many years of having a terrible offensive line, or even having a patchwork offensive line that is, surprise, they're okay.
Yeah.
There's never been a time where they had a Patriots offensive line, or Tampa Bay when Tom Brady first went there. Some of the offensive lines Aaron Rodgers has had. He not really, it doesn't have a great one this year, but has had seasons where he's had really good offensive line. A lot of these players, it goes on and on. Peyton Manning and the Colts. All those are championship teams, and they've all had good offensive lines. The Bears have never committed to an offensive line. They committed to a defensive line. They have historically had great defensive lines.
So if the Bears go out in free agency, and let's just say the Bears go out in free agency, say they add Orlando Brown and maybe let's say Mike McGlinchey from Tampa Bay. Or no, McGlinchey is with the 49ers. Say they add those two guys. And let's say maybe the safety from Cincinnati, what's his name? Jesse Bates. He's also due to be a free agent. Maybe even the cornerback from Tampa Bay, Dean, Jamal Dean. He's also a young cornerback who's due to be a free agent. Say they add 2 to 3 of those 4 guys. Then does your mindset change?
Yeah.
Then do you want
then they're probably going receiver for sure. But they'll probably still trade down because they do need more picks.
I agree. You have to trade
throw in
down.
Payne,
You're not taking Quentin Johnson at 2. I mean, you could, but you're not.
No, they're not. They're not going to. They're going to trade that pick. Almost 100%. They're going to trade that pick. It almost be stupid not to because they just need bodies at this point. But yeah, I could see that happening if they do that. You throw in Payne and at the Redskins because that is one mean motherfucker. You throw him in, and yeah, I'm getting then they probably are going receiver, and you can name which receiver. It doesn't necessarily have to be Quentin Jackson. Hopefully, it is.
Yeah, and look,
but I don't know if all that's going to happen. That's a lot of ifs.
I mean, when you've got that much money to throw around, I mean, look, $116 million, you have to, if you're the Bears and you want to be relevant in the division next year, because it's going to be a down division next year. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that. I think the Lions are on their way up. I think the Vikings are very good. So the Bears do. I think it's going to be a down year for Green Bay next year because I think they'll be without Aaron Rodgers. I was right again about the Green Bay Packers this year. I just want to keep. I always like throwing that out. I told Packers fans all over the place they weren't even a 10-win team this year. Oh, they're definitely going to win 10 games. Well, the most they can win now is 9. They're probably going to lose today, so the most they can win is 8. If you want to be competitive with the Lions and with the Vikings next season, then you've got to overpay to get some of these guys to come to Chicago. You have to. You're going to have to overpay. You're going to have to go out and get a guy that maybe you don't want to sign for that 4th or 5th year, but you're going to have to give him that 4th or 5th year to get him to come play for your football team. And you're going to have to do some selling because, look, the Chicago Bears are not exactly an organization that has been rich with smart decisions in the last 10 to 20 years, right?
No.
So you're going to have to do some selling. Hey, look, this is what we're building. You're going to have to do what the Cubs did with John Lester back in 2014. You're going to have to sell the fact that, hey, we don't plan on winning next year, but the year after that, it's a go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you're going to have to sell to some of these high-price free agents. Hey, come here. We'll be okay, but we don't plan on winning, but we'll be okay. So come here and help us win 2 to 3 years from now. That's going to be the hard sell for Chicago, but you've got the money to do that sell. As I just watched the dang Packers run back a kick for a touchdown.
Jesus Christ.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, I think they have to be competitive next year. Just because of the cap and the draft capital they have now, they're going to be 2. They're going to lose next week, and there's no way the Texans are going to win. And they got demolished today by the Jaguars. So, I mean, yeah, John McGlinchey would be a great get. I think you're starting to turn people's heads a little bit, but you have to make all those acquisitions. And then with those acquisitions, and if you have a number 1 receiver, and I don't know, are you that down? Are you already giving up on Chase Claypool? But I mean, I don't know.
Chase Claypool can't be your number 1, can he?
I don't know. He didn't have a quarterback with Pittsburgh. He really hasn't had a year this year. He's got a guy, who's
I haven't seen him get open. I haven't seen him have the ability to get open since he's been here.
Mm-hmm.
And from everything that I'm hearing is that he's had a hard time picking up the playbook as well. So yes, I'm down on Clay. I don't want Claypool. I don't think you can be good with Claypool as your number 1 wide receiver. I think if Claypool's your number 1 wide receiver, then you have to get another number 1 wide receiver to play on the other side of him.
I don't know. See, I don't know. I know his first year. I mean, when he had Roethlisberger throwing him the ball, that looked pretty much like first receiver stuff. But I don't know. I haven't seen enough to say either way. I know he can run. I know he's big. Yeah, I mean, if Claypool and Mooney are your 2 and 3, you got a pretty damn good receiving core. I mean, I think you do. I think most teams would say that about their number 1. I mean, there's only about 4 or 5 teams that are pretty comfortable with their number 1 wide receiver. I'd say maybe 6 or 7.
Jeremiah says you need a number 1 so Claypool and Mooney can be number 2 and number 3.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer that Mooney needs to be your number 3. Mooney as a slot guy, as your Wes Welker type wide receiver, I think elevates him to another level. Because I don't think he has the ability to be a number one. And I don't think Claypool has the ability to be a number one. I think both Claypool and Mooney have the capability to be very good number twos and number threes, but they cannot be the main focus of your offense every single week. They just can't. And that's not going to scare anybody.
And they have to be able to run a route. They have to have time to run a route.
Luke G wants to join the conversation. Sure, Luke G, you can chime in. Feel free. You can jump in. We can have a conversation with you. We'd love to tear you up about your Lions. Jeremiah says the Vikings are a mediocre team masquerading as a good team.
Yeah, they are one of those teams.
Do you believe that?
They've had a lot of tight wins that kind of shake your head at. I don't know about the quarterback either.
As our guy Johnny Torres chimes in. Johnny, what's going on? It's a good time to let everybody know, if you haven't yet seen it on the Facebook page, that we will be with Southside Bags this Thursday night at Bourbon Street, live from Bourbon Street. We'll be streaming the show live. We'll be there probably around 6. We'll probably be going live around 6:15 and getting everything set up. Come down, join your favorite two, Chicago sports clowns, as we, like to give you all the knowledge that we think we're giving you. I don't know if we're really giving you any knowledge, but we're giving you something. And then afterwards, you can throw some bags, Southside Bags. I got a good crew up there. Johnny runs an event. You throw 20 bucks in, get a random partner. Sometimes you get a good partner. Sometimes you get me. And so, that's just the luck of the draw. It's a good night. Thursday nights, Bourbon Street. Bags fly usually about 7:30-ish, as Johnny Torres likes to say, ish. And then, usually about 10:30, the first tournament ends. Most of the times we'll start a second one. But let's get some faces out there. Let's get some new faces out there. Throw some bags, have some fun. Listen to us talk sports. You can be there live to boo us. John, you can come out there. You can come out there, talk about my hat that I'm wearing that night. You can come out there, boo us if you want to, whatever you want to do.
There will be some boos from him.
Come on down. Come on down to Bourbon Street. We will definitely do it. Tor says you bring a Fitz. Yeah, Fitzy's going to be there. I can't do a show without Fitzy.
He'll be the loud guy who's half drunk. No.
From one beer. One beer. And Johnny says we're now running a third blind draw starting 1:18 at Magoo's in Bedford Park, Illinois. That's over there by Midway Airport, I believe.
Yeah, it's not Bedford Park. Isn't far from there.
Yeah.
He's really spreading out.
Yeah. So now he said he can't wear his socks gear though. Hey, we get plenty of guys that wear their socks gear, that come out and throw. I like to beat those guys a lot.
Just for that, you're gonna get TA7 right in the face. Tim Anderson, baby.
He's gonna come in a full uniform.
I'll show you what
He's gonna have the socks pants, the socks. He's gonna bring a glove.
At least my shortstop has a real name. What's Dansby Swanson? Come on.
At least our shortstop will play more than 82 games this season.
Here we go. We'll see.
God. Drew chimes in. What's going on, Drew? Says socks gear is the only gear to wear.
Damn right.
I don't know about any of that, but man, look, I know we've been talking about Bears. I know we've been talking about the draft. The Bears are just that team. There's a lot of things that I want to see, a lot of things that I want the Bears to do. I just don't know that they're going to do it, as Luke G has joined the stream. So I might add Luke G here. We'll have a quick conversation with Luke G.
All right.
Hey, Luke, what's going on?
Hey, what's going on, family? Y'all good?
Yeah, man. How you? I know you're doing good.
I'd be doing even better if we didn't have to, take the hardest road of resistance to get to the playoffs. But, I'm not going to be mad that we are in the mix, so I'm not going to be upset about it.
Would you expect any less from the Lions, though?
I expect more from the Lions. And in my opinion, I had the Lions going 10-7. And I thought that I thought that they should have won double digits and made the playoffs. And I said that I believe that they can go as high as 12 wins. And when you look at our schedule, you look at the way those games went down, if we had a half decent defense, we probably got 13 wins, to be honest with you.
Luke, earlier in the season, I said I like the Lions offense. I really like what the Lions can do. They're a good team that can score 45 points on any team in this league. The problem is they can't stop the other team from scoring 48.
Correct. Yeah. And I told you that, look, we should be much more improved given some of the pieces we picked up. But the reality is, and this is one of the reasons why I have been a very critical person of the Lions general manager, is the defense has not lived up to its part. When you play the Seattle Seahawks and score 45, you don't have to lose that game. Right? Yeah. You just don't. And when you go through and you look at all the other games that they've lost,
they could have won that Buffalo game too, Luke.
They should have won the Buffalo game. They should have beat the Panthers. The New England game, they should have beat them. These teams that they lost to.
I don't know. Didn't New England beat them 29-0?
It was bad, yeah.
I was gonna say, what do you mean they should have beat them?
But 29-0. I'll explain to you what I mean by why they should have beat them. They didn't do anything special. We just sucked. Right? The same way that the Panthers didn't really do anything special against us. We just sucked. We couldn't tackle. We couldn't catch. We couldn't breathe. I don't even think we showed up on the field that day. It was just nothing they could do. And what you see is what happened with the Bears today happened to the Lions the week before. So the Lions had to come out with a bigger response for the final home game of the season. On top of that, it being a division game and knowing that, hey, you have to win out to win and get in, that is huge for us. And I think that the Lion fan base, we're going to be excited because we want to be in the playoffs. It's been so long. But
Jeremiah Murray has a question for you, Luke. He wants to know if you're afraid Monday Night Raw is going to steal your head coach.
Nah, not one bit. Not one bit. No, because the reality is this. Even the people who were critical of Dan Campbell and stuff, even they have to go back and eat crow, right? Because what you saw is those, even in those losses, they still had fight in them, right? They still had fight. It's only 2 games this whole season out of 17 where there was no fight in them, and that was the Panthers and New England. But the rest of the games, there was still a lot of fight in them and desire to win. And they're doing that with no real dogs on defense. You can't, if you go through and look at all the teams in the NFL, you can name who the dogs are on defense. The dog on defense for y'all used to be Roquan Smith, but, I think it's Jaquan Brisker at this point. But if you go through and you look at the Rams, I said, who's the dog on defense? Everybody instantly go Aaron Donald.
Aaron Donald, yep.
Right? And you can do that for almost every team. But the Lions, who's the dog on the Lions defense?
Aiden
Hutchinson. That guy's an animal.
Dude, I would kill
not even.
Aiden
I don't.
I'll give you my whole team for Aiden Hutchinson.
You give me the whole team.
Fields. Yeah, minus Justin Fields. You can't have Justin Fields.
I wouldn't want Justin Fields, no way.
What?
Here we go.
What?
I wouldn't want him. I'm sorry.
Why? What are you watching?
My problem with Justin Fields is this, right? You got to keep in mind, I got spoiled to certain styles of quarterbacks, right? And I like quarterbacks who do so much with less, right? Every excuse that y'all are trying to make for Fields, we couldn't make that for Stafford. He still got it done. When Stafford didn't have weapons and didn't have a run game and didn't have an offensive line and was the most sacked quarterback in the league, he still got wins and comebacks. And he wasn't
Justin
mobile.
Fields is in his second season with his second coaching staff with 0 weapons and no offensive line.
The same thing with Stafford. I
don't count that first season. And Stafford was nothing special his first season. I don't count last season as
well. He got hurt his first season, remember?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, so he got hurt his
first couple seasons. I mean, there was always noise around him that he wasn't as good until he got, later on in his career and he, had some consistency. But
what I'm saying is that Fields. What I'm saying is Fields is this. When I look at Fields, right, I understand that he is lacking some things, right. But I also see times where I feel like Justin Fields held the ball too damn long. There's times where he hasn't helped his offensive line out. There's times where he should take the sack instead of running 15 yards back. There's times where he should throw the ball away or throw the ball in the area of a receiver so it looked like he was trying to throw it to him and make a smart decision. And what I see is a guy who's relying too much on his legs. Oh, and don't get me started on the Megatron talking because as soon as Kevin Johnson left, all his numbers shot up. That's not an exaggeration. That's facts. As soon as Kevin Johnson left, all his numbers shot up. And I have
Stafford's?
Stafford's. All his numbers shot up. That's facts.
It's true.
I think he could have been maturing at that point. I mean, that could also be part of it. I mean, but I don't know. You're
Luke G, this is something I threw over to Fitzy last week. Okay. Since week 5, Fields has thrown 13 touchdowns, ran for 7 touchdowns, and he's only turned the ball over 7 times. That's a 3-to-1 touchdown to turnover ratio. His completion percentage has sent his average out to about 66%. His yards per attempt has been 7.5, and his passer rating has been 97.8. It's easy to fixate on the mistakes, but let's try to fixate on the fact that Fields is pretty much the sole reason while we're not consistently losing games by 2+ scores. I came from a Bears fan, Jake Sheehan, over in I Am Bears Cess, and I sent that over to Fitzy because I don't understand how people can look at what Justin Fields is doing and what he's doing it with and be like, oh, I don't like what he's doing. I don't understand the mindset. This is also a Bears team that there's another stat that I sent over to Fitzy. They lead the league in big plays this season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that's because he's running, and then 2, you had to take a snapshot to get that good look of him. Right?
They have 31. They have 31 big plays passing too, though.
Yeah, but
it's not just running.
But it's a snapshot, and when you look at the overall context of it all, in a lot of those games with Justin Fields, he's them turnovers are the direct reason why y'all are getting into some of these dog fights and are getting down in these games. I mean, he just needs to sit there and take care of the ball a little bit better. I'm not judging him to say that he's hot garbage or nothing like that, because another quarterback whose team has a winning record and is doing the same thing is Dak Prescott. He and Dak Prescott are essentially doing the same thing, where they have stats that look good in the snapshot screen, but in crucial points of the game, those turnovers are the deciding factors of the game. And so those little things you have to look at. I mean, I can tell you how all the good stuff about Jamal Williams as a running back, but I can point to games where he had a fumble that resulted in the momentum being switched and us taking the L. Or I can show you another game where he fumbled that resulted in us just getting another L. So you see these points where it's happening. I'm just making the point to say that, okay, in all fairness, Justin Houston can't do it by himself. I agree with that. I think that I'm not ready to crown him with anything just because he's the best of a bad bunch. That's not how I rate quarterbacks. I look at them and I say, individually, what are you doing with what you have? Because what you have is what you have, and you got to make whatever you can with what you have.
So if we give Justin Fields, because like I said, $116 million in cap space this season is a ton of cap space for the Bears to go out and build around Justin Fields. So if the Bears go out and they pick up a couple offensive linemen, whether it be Orlando Brown, whether it be Mike McGlinchey, a couple other guys that we've mentioned, they build up that offensive line. You go out and you get them a weapon, whether it's through the draft or through free agency. It's got to be through the draft, wide receiver wise. I mean, you can get them a weapon at the running back position in free agency, but I don't see any real weapons in free agency at the wide receiver position. So you're telling me that if the Bears do all those things, Justin Fields, who's already throwing for, probably throw for about 2,600 yards this season. And I agree with him when he says he doesn't want to run 15 times a game. He doesn't want to run for 1,000 yards a season. It's not what he wants to do. But if you get him those weapons and you get him an offensive line that can give him some time to throw the ball, maybe then you start seeing the real Justin Fields, the same Justin Fields that was able to sling the ball over the place at Ohio State.
Yeah, but I can say that for every quarterback in the NFL. If I give them an offensive line, if I give them receivers, if I give them a running game, if I surround them and build around them. Name one. Name a
Jared Goff.
Okay, let's start with Jared Goff. That's exactly what they did, right? Think about it, right? That's exactly what they did. They gave him DJ Chark. They gave him a complete offensive line. They gave him 2 running backs. They gave him they went out and added J-Mo. They got rid of his tight end and gave him more tight ends so they could take that cap space and do something else with it and just say, we'll just run with the tight end because we're not going to throw it to him any other kind of way. And then in fact, that's why I'm so angry at Brad Holmes. Everything he's done has been dedicated to surrounding Jared Goff. And what you see, his numbers are changing drastically and significantly, especially when you look at it in a snapshot. But the reality is this: if you put all these things around him, for any quarterback, you're going to have that level of success. And so for me, when it comes to the Bears, I think the Bears' biggest mistake was they decided that they didn't need the defense that they had. I think Justin Fields could have played the same way he's been playing right now if they had a better defense, and y'all would have a way better record.
Yeah, but see that I've seen that story as a Bears fan. I've seen that. I've done that. I'm so tired of the quarterbacks that win because of the defense is good. I'm so tired of seeing, like, they have the ability with Justin Fields to go out and within maybe the next 2 seasons be a top 5 offense in this league if they build around him correctly. The same way the Philadelphia Eagles did with Jalen Hurts. I think that reality sometimes sucks, right? Like I'll give you a perfect example, right? Like the Lions in 1991. I hate to go this far back, but in 91, they went to the NFC Championship.
We go this far back in this show.
Yeah. We like to rewrite seasons on this show.
But what I'm saying is in 91, they go to the NFC Championship game with a quarterback named Eric Kramer, a Hall of Fame running back, and Barry Sanders, and a defense that was just absolutely nuts, right? Like they really love scraping towards the ball, right? Mm-hmm. And you look fast forward, every time the Lions ever went to the playoffs or won a playoff game, they had a run game. They were a rushing team. Sometimes your history is your history. When I look at the Bears' history, every time y'all had a stout defense, you did great things. All the way when y'all had Mike McMahon wasn't special, but goddamn, the defense was phenomenal. And when you go past that, when y'all got Brian Urlacher, Charles Tillman, Lance Briggs, and the list goes on, y'all still did a whole lot because you went to the Super Bowl with freaking Rex Grossman.
Yep.
Like your history is your history.
Super Bowl win in 50 years.
Right.
That's the problem. That's why they have to go this way. And for every Jared Goff, there's a Baker Mayfield. I mean, and you could say he's doing well with the Rams now, but he had a lot of pieces around him in the Browns and he didn't do well. I just think sometimes you don't even have to talk stats. You just have to look at a player play. Fair. When I look at Justin Fields play, I see somebody special. I see something very special. And it's not just the running. And why throw out the running? I mean, why say, oh, he's running for all that stuff? Well, yeah, he can run too. Give credit where credit's due. The guy's the second best quarterback runner in history of the NFL for a reason. I mean, you have to add that on to his talent and the quarterback that he is. He can do more things than a lot of quarterbacks out there just because of his legs. I mean, you have to look at it and say he can do these things. And once you see the pieces there, he can do things. There is a lot of quarterbacks that have had pieces around them and still sucked. Believe me, I know because a lot of them played for the Bears.
Yeah. And or Jeremiah says, and we would have won a Super Bowl if it wasn't for Rex Grossman. Yeah. I think we would have won a Super Bowl if it wasn't for the defensive coordinator. That's just me. The way we played defense in that second half was atrocious.
Relitigating.
No, I hated what I hated about that Super Bowl win in particular was I thought this just me from what I remember, y'all was running the ball really effective and just said, F it, we're not doing it no more. Mm-hmm. I could not make sense of that
in that game.
Same way the Falcons just decided to stop running the ball up 28-3.
Exactly. So it's one of the things where you can look at it and you can say, okay, cool. So what that tells me is that those quarterbacks, and this is one of the things that I've been leaning towards for the last few years, is teams need to stop paying these quarterbacks all these money because they're all dependent upon everything else being in a perfect setting. Those quarterbacks who can do it where it's not a perfect setting, those are usually Hall of Fame quarterbacks who do win in non-perfect settings. Right? But the ones who need it in a perfect setting, don't pay them. I wouldn't have paid Kyler Murray. I wouldn't have. I'd have been like, no, you need too many things to be right for you to go. But when I look at the Bears and I look at Justin Fields, I don't see a guy who's special. I see a guy who's like everybody else. If you put everything around him perfectly, then boom, he might be able to be something, but it won't matter. How do you
not see a guy that I don't get that. I don't think
it has to be perfect, Luke. I really don't think it has to be perfect for him. I think he's showing that it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be something.
Have you watched the way he escapes pressure?
Yes.
Luke, like the way, I mean, there was a game against, I think it was against the Packers. I mean, what was that game where he should have been sacked like 10 times on the same play? and still escaped and scored a touchdown off of the play.
Listen,
Like-
I'm not knocking that. Everybody loves his running ability, right? But this is why fantasy football exists, because everybody loves high scoring and they love all the stuff that they can put into a little bitty calculator and say I get 4 points for it. Like, I get it, but the reality is when you look at Justin Fields in and of himself, he's not going to carry that team by himself, and so you better get back to your history, which is running the ball and playing defense. That was your history when you got to the Super Bowl. McMahon didn't do nothing. It was about Walter. Then they started putting Perry at the damn goal line and short yard. You know,
don't even get us started about that, because we every time I look at Mike Dick, I want to fire him again just for that freaking play call.
I'm just saying, right? It should have been sweetness. Everybody knows it. But what I'm saying is
your old play call. You're arguing about.
Yeah, but
dude, talk about relitigating.
I
Let's relitigate that
agree.
play call.
I agree with some of what you're saying, Luke, but I don't know if you're talking about a football that just isn't being played anymore because of the rules, because of the way a lot of these teams are going. You know, like you said, philosophically with quarterbacks, but a lot of it's rules. I mean, it's just not really a running and defensive league anymore.
But
I
is.
I say that while we're having a running renaissance in the league.
That's what I'm saying. But if you think about it, right? If you go through every year, just do this. You don't even got to do anything extra. Just go through it. The thing about history is history repeats itself every single time, and especially when we don't even pay attention.
Sure does.
Go back and look at it. Every year, the teams who are able to run the ball from, say, late October on out, they tend to be playoff teams and go further in the playoff and get to Super Bowls. And the teams who are all pass first tend to lose the Super Bowl. Now, you had a few where they had to keep passing and they won because of that, because the other team didn't run the ball, i.e. here's looking at you, Atlanta, right? But what I'm saying is when you look at the history, those teams who are able to run the ball late in the season are having more success. And those
I think you have to be more balanced, though, in this league. And, I mean, I've watched times where Justin Fields puts it on a dime to St. Brown or to Pettis, and they just drop the ball. Like, I mean, there are so many times where he would rather throw the ball first, and when he does, they just can't catch the ball.
Or look at the end zone view on some of these plays where there's nobody open. You're saying he's holding the ball a lot. That's true. He does. And sometimes guys are open, but a lot of times you look at the end zone view. I try to after some games. You can look it up on YouTube and get them usually. And there's nobody open. I mean, there's just nobody getting separation, especially with Mooney out. Mooney usually gets some decent separation.
If you look on YouTube, if you look on YouTube itself, just from our draft night special, is the same thing that I said. I said, though, the one knock that I have on Justin Fields is that he has a tendency to hang on to the ball too long.
He does.
He doesn't hit the receiver when the receiver first, and that's still a problem. But right now, I don't know if that's more of a problem of him not progressing or a problem of him not having enough time to throw the ball, and B, the trust in his receivers to actually make the catch.
I'll give you a perfect example. In today's game, right? The Lions have a pick who I've been raving about ever since he stepped foot on the field. I'm just like, look, this guy looks special, and that's James Houston. And James Houston, there was a few plays where I'm watching like you say, nobody's open. Run. Run. Like, if Fields just takes off, this is not even an issue, right? He has the ability to run. But what he did was he stayed there and he waited. And then finally, our guys for the Lions got home and got him down. And I'm thinking, this is much as what I see, where he's holding the ball in situations where I'm like, okay, ain't nothing open, take off.
He's also playing hurt now, though, too. I mean
but
there's no doubt about it that he's playing hurt right now. I mean, every time he's on the sidelines, he's stretching out his hip. He's getting a massage gun on his hip and on his calves. Like, the guy is playing hurt right now. I think it's stupid. I think they need to protect him from himself, and they need to put him on the bench, especially heading into the next week. But I don't know. I see it from a different. Maybe it's because I'm a Bears fan. Maybe I'm not seeing it with outsider's hat. I like to be very, I see it from both sides of the fence. I don't just make up my mind. I'm very honest about my teams. I'll tell you when they suck as much as I'll tell you when they're good. But
I can tell you this,
I don't see it.
I can tell you this: as an outsider looking in, you can have the Detroit Lions offensive line, and Fields wouldn't be no better. And I'll tell you why. because even when he had protection, he chose to run.
So you're telling me if the Bears switched with Jared Goff with Justin Fields this year, they would still be fighting for a playoff spot? I think they would already be in a playoff spot if they
I
had
think
Justin Fields.
I think if you swap those two quarterbacks out, the Lions would be worse because I think
Wow.
well, you got to keep in mind, I think our defense is still not good, right? That's
Yeah.
one issue. And then on the other end of it, even with you giving him protection, he doesn't run when he's supposed to. And when he do run, it's like, okay, great. He runs, right? Like I'm all for it, right? But at the end of the day, that would not be enough for us to get over the hump. Like that wouldn't be enough. So what I'm saying is, even if you gave him a really good offensive line, you're talking about getting an offensive line that's aware that, hey, I got this running quarterback, and when he takes off, I got to keep my head on the swivel. Yeah, most times that don't work out.
Well, see, the problem for you, Luke, is that they not only do they have to win out, but they need the Seahawks to lose one of their next two games, and they play against the Jets, who's every redheaded stepchild's favorite team because they don't beat anybody. And then they've got to play against Baker Mayfield, who, again, doesn't beat anybody. So I think even if they do win next week, again, who do they got next week? The Packers?
Yep.
Yeah, so even if they do beat the Packers next week, which, God, I hope they do. I mean, if there's one team that I like
I'll be on your side next week.
Yeah. Just like I'm rooting for the Vikings right now, who are just blowing it out there behind right now. I don't know that the Lions get in. I am rooting for them to get in, though. I'll tell you that much.
I'll put it like this. I'm rooting for them to get in as well. But I think if they don't get in, I can go back and I can look at the Panthers game and say, hey, this is one of those games that you shouldn't have lost. I can go back and look at the Seattle Seahawks game and go, hey, this is a game that you shouldn't have lost because it came back to bite you in the butt. These games, when you go head-to-head against these teams who are now ahead of you because of a half a game because you didn't handle business when you played them, that's on us. And I own that. Like, that's on us.
Jeremiah says there goes all the credibility. I know I don't like rooting for other teams either, but, I just want to see the Packers lose. Luke, before we get out of here, Bo, why don't you go ahead and tell everybody where they can find you?
Hey, you can find me on Luke G's Fair Review. I'm also on the Man Our Lions YouTube channel as well, so you can check me out on there. I try to go live as much as possible, but my employer doesn't seem to think that I have a life. So
I have one of those too.
Yeah, they think the word mandation is the new fad. So yeah. But yeah, I mean, I'm over there talking Lions. I'll be going live tomorrow to talk Lions and talking about
I'll check it out.
The breakdown of the game, talking about my love of the players. And then every show starts off with a positive message for suicide prevention. So shout out to Man Hour who made a T-shirt that's titled "Stay Tomorrow Needs You." So if you come onto the channel and you purchase one of those shirts, some of the proceeds go towards the American Suicide Prevention Association, which helps pay for a number of different things for people who can't afford this but are in need. And so in general, I just I keep it 100 and I talk all things Detroit Lions. But if you come in there, it is an open forum, and feel free to come in and talk trash if you are from another team. I'm gonna let you do it. Trust me, I know. I'll be like, here we go.
You come on my show and talk about Justin Fields. You're getting something back now.
Hey, I'm just saying, listen. I would not trade for. Justin Fields to me. I just wouldn't. He couldn't be my quarterback.
Time will tell.
All right, Luke, man. I appreciate you hopping in.
Appreciate you.
We'll talk with you soon.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Thanks, Luke.
That was Luke G. Luke G's Field Review. Look, yeah, he loves his Lions, and he's a smart dude. When it comes to football, man, he knows his stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I usually hesitate calling Lions fans smart, but he's one of the few. So not just kidding. Luke G, we always love having you chime, man.
He expects a lot out of the Lions. Imagine being a Lions fan and expecting a lot out of your team.
I know he did. He had them at 10-7 before the season started. I had them right where they are. I had them at 8-9 is what I had them finishing the season at. So they might finish 9-8. We'll see. All right. So before we get out of here, we wanted to talk a little bit of baseball. We got a lot of things brewing. You've got the Sox. I think that they're staying still. You think that they're going to make another move. I don't see another move out there to make for them unless they're making a trade.
Maybe Elvis Andrews or a trade. There's some people are talking about Jazz Chisholm from Florida who is a left-handed hitting second baseman. But they have one of those in the minors. and Colson Montgomery, they need a guy who could play second who's a veteran. I don't think you can wait for Lenine Sosa or Romy Gonzalez. I don't know if those guys, they have some pop in their bat. They do. Both have hit over 20 home runs in the minors, in that South Division too, which it's hard to hit home runs. But I don't see those guys as the answer this year. You can't have two rookies in your lineup and and say you're going to be a championship team unless those rookies are absolute 100% studs who played a little bit of Major League Baseball. They're going to say
Washington did it a couple years back.
Yeah, they're going to have Colson, right? Yeah, but
Yeah.
who are the rookies in Washington? I don't think Colas. I think Colas is going to be good. I don't think he's going to be. Yeah, I don't think he's going to be that good.
He's not Juan Soto.
Yeah, I don't think he's Juan Soto. He is left-handed though, but
Yeah.
I just don't know if they don't get a second baseman who can at least be, serviceable, like an Elvis Andrews, who can at least be mediocre to. I mean, the end of his season was terrific. If you can't have a guy, if they don't have a guy like that, I don't know. It gives me a bad feeling having two rookies in your lineup going into a season where you should be contending for a championship.
Yeah, see, and I think that they're content with where they're at. I mean, I to be honest with you, the signing of Benintendi to me was a shock. I mean, I didn't expect them to do that either. So it wouldn't surprise me per se for them to go out and make another move, but I haven't heard them linked to anybody this offseason. But to be fair, I didn't even hear them linked to Benintendi either.
No, we didn't even talk about it. He's
No.
the one guy I wanted, and we didn't even talk about it. I thought there was just I thought he was going to stay with the Yankees. I just figured that was going to happen. But.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. I think that was a great signing for them.
Yep.
On paper, look, this lineup is phenomenal. I love what the White Sox are doing.
Balanced.
First
time in a long time, balanced.
Yeah, and even their pitching staff, you've got to get some bounce back years in your pitching staff. Like you've got to have Dylan Cease obviously to ask, for a guy to repeat a performance of being a Cy Young candidate is always hard. But Lance Lynn has to be better than he was last year. Lucas Giolito has to be 100 times better than he was last year.
If Lynn has a spring training, I think he'll be good. The guy's a horse. He only throws really fast balls, so there's really not a lot of hurt there. He hurt his knee. He didn't really hurt his arm.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think if he has a spring training and him and Cease are good, I mean, yeah, they're going to be in contention.
But you went out and got Mike Clevenger. I thought that was a good ad.
Yeah.
Kopech, I really like Kopech. To me, the catalyst, though, is Giolito in that pitching staff. Because if he has another bad year where he can't even – where you're thinking going into the playoffs, whether or not he might even make the roster,
yeah, that's
going to be a problem. So – but I think they're good. I think they're good in the bullpen. Graveman, Lopez, Bummer, Diekman, and Hendricks. I like their lineup. Grandal, you would like to see him have a better season than what he had last season. Andrew Vaughn, Lurie Garcia, Yohan Moncada, Tim Anderson, Gavin Sheets, Luis Robert, Andrew Benintendi, and Eloy as the DH. Like, I really like what the White Sox have. I think they're going to be the best team in Chicago this year. I don't even think it should be close, unless
here we go.
My Cubs do what we're about to talk about, and they are linked right now in a trade with the Boston Red Sox to go out and get Rafael Devers. So at first I was like, yeah, right. This will never happen.
That was my first impression.
But then I started thinking about it, right? And I started saying, all right, what would you have to give up for Rafael Devers? Now, I think that if the Red Sox are smart, and this is just me spitballing here, if the Red Sox are smart, whoever gets Devers, because you have to move Devers if you're Chain Bloom for somebody, because if you let another generational talent walk like you just let Bogarts walk without getting something in return, you might as well just resign because you're going to get fired. And they're light years apart. As a matter of fact, the exact term from sources within the organization are that they're galaxies apart in their negotiations. And if you're not going to sign him, you got to get something for him. But also, if you're smart and if you're Bloom and you want to salvage something of this, and you're going to get a haul for Devers, you're going to make whatever team gets him take Chris Sale with him and take that contract. Right?
Oh, come on.
You have to.
Who's
You
gonna
have to
do
throw
it?
Chris Sale in on the deal because you say,
Oh.
look, you're going to get Devers, but you're going to take Sale from us. You're going to do us a favor, right? So if you're the Cubs, here's what you would have to offer. And I think that this is it's not as far-fetched as you might think, right? It's the first piece of this is going to have to be Justin Steele. You're going to have to give up Justin Steele. You're going to have to give up a big arm. You're going to get a veteran arm in return. But we've got a shortstop who we no longer really have room for with the addition of Dansby Swanson and Christian Hernandez in the minor leagues. You have Pete Crow Armstrong in the minor leagues. And you have Patrick Wisdom, who I will throw in any trade for anything.
You trade every show. You trade Patrick Wisdom, put him in as DH, and you kill Virginia
I
McCaskey.
haven't killed Virginia yet. I'm coming to that. Don't worry about
Blood
that.
pressure check.
So if you give up Christian Hernandez, Pete Crow Armstrong, Patrick Wisdom, and Justin Steele to the Red Sox, and you take that Chris Sale contract to get Rafael Devers, put on your Cubs hat for a second here. All right. And I know you're not a Cubs fan at all, but you have the ability, just like I do, to see things from the perspective of the other fan base, right? If you're a Cubs fan, is that too much to give up for Rafael Devers? Because Pete Crow Armstrong is a huge prospect.
It just speeds up the window to a point where I don't know if it's manufacturing a window instead of actually letting one mature. But like you say, aren't you sick of fucking rebuilding? The Cubs have been rebuilding more. The Cubs won a World Series and they've been rebuilding more the last 10 years than they've been actually trying to win.
Yeah.
It definitely does. They're a contender if they have Rafael Devers. That's it. They are. I mean, they have Dansby Swanson and him both on the left side of that infield. They are a contender for that division. I'd have to say they are. And if so, then yeah, that's worth it. But is Boston going to take that? I just don't see how Boston is getting rid of a 25-year-old left-handed third baseman. I mean, that's a guy you can build around.
Because they want him to take a team-friendly deal, and he's not going to do it.
Wow. What, did Boston not have any money? I mean, Jesus.
They've got money, but everybody is trying to latch on. And the Cubs did this, and we talked about this.
Yeah.
Everybody is latching on to the Tampa Bay Rays vision, right? Nobody's really latching on to what they're doing in the Mets organization now, which is what everybody needs to latch on to.
Cohen.
Steve Cohen, to me, is going to change the way owners have to spend. I don't think they have a choice, because you're either you're going to end up getting a salary cap because of Steve Cohen, which with a cap comes a floor, which to me, I think you need the floor more than you need the cap.
Yeah, I think they just pump up the luxury tax more, but they already have done that.
But for the Cubs, if you've got Pete Crow Armstrong, who's a top 30 prospect in all of baseball, okay, he's your number one prospect in your organization, but he's a top 30 prospect in all of baseball.
And his name is Pico.
No, it's Pete Crow Armstrong. Good God.
Is his last name DeGaio? No.
Pico DeGaio. So you got Pete Crow Armstrong, Christian Hernandez, who's only 19, playing in high A ball, 19 years old. You've got, and you are so deep in the outfield, which Pete Crow Armstrong is a right fielder. You are so deep in the outfield. You can extend Hap. You've already got Seiya Suzuki for the next 4 years. And you just signed Bellinger as a stopgap for Brendan Davis out in center field. Or maybe, if he has a great year, you can sign him again and he could be your first baseman next year with Brendan Davis as a center fielder.
Bat 170 and have 5 home runs, or bat 240 and hit 40.
Yeah. It just depends on what you're going to see from this guy. So I think that this makes a ton of sense for both teams when you start looking at this. They get a 19-year-old shortstop prospect who they just lost, a Xander Bogaerts. This kid's in high A. They were expecting him by the end of the season to be in Triple A. and he could be a call-up at the age of 21. Then you got Pete Crow Armstrong, a top 30 outfield prospect in all of baseball. You're in rebuild mode. You could pick up Patrick Wisdom, who's a guy who can come out and he can play for you. I don't want to see him, but he can play for you. And then you get Justin Steele, who can be a guy who can be a solid number 2 or number 3 guy in your rotation for the next 5 to 10 years. I don't see how that doesn't make sense for a team that's rebuilding, and how it doesn't make sense for the Cubs, because they've got the ability to do that based off of what they have in their organization currently.
Because the only different is he bats left-handed. I mean, I hate to keep saying it, because he does, and a right. Well, you have to throw right-handed to be a third baseman, but a left-handed hitting third baseman is like, I mean, that is something that just does not come around a lot. That's why that when you have something in sports like that, I mean, it's like the top. It's like,
Yeah, I mean, you can say the same thing about Xander Bogaerts. You can say the same thing about why did Washington let Bryce Harper go? You know, you could say all sorts of things, even though Washington won the World Series the year after they traded Bryce Harper. But you can say all sorts of things about generational talent and not letting them walk. They just let Xander Bogaerts walk. And after letting Xander Bogaerts walk, you would think, hey, we're going to give Devers whatever they want. Because if we let Devers go, the fans are going to I mean, they are going the buildings are going to burn in Boston if they let Devers go. But to be that far off in your negotiations, I don't know that you left yourself much of a choice to at least get something for him instead of letting him walk in the offseason.
The Washington Nationals aren't the Boston Red Sox, though. I mean, they print money there. What are they, the third, fourth most valuable team out there? I mean, they are bringing money. The Cubs basically Xerox copied what Fenway Park did, even though the Cubs had that there. But Fenway Park's like a carnival. You ever been?
I think they're at that point where it's just time for them to go through a rebuild. I mean, let's face it. They've been a perennial World Series contender since 2004. The Red Sox.
They had some lean years before they got Jackie Bradley, and
they won it in 2004. They won it in 2008. They won it in 2013, and they won it in 2018.
Yeah, but there were some lean years before in there.
Building
in there. But I get what you're saying.
But they've been a team that everybody said, hey, if this team gets hot, they can be a World Series contender. They can beat anybody. Yeah. And the Red Sox have always been in that talk ever since that 2003-2004 season when they got Manny Ramirez and Big Papi. Like, so they talk about these guys now. I mean, for it to be 20 years later and them thinking about a rebuild, I don't think that that's too far-fetched. And I don't think that this team, with what they have, you cannot afford it. If you're Bloom and you want to be the general manager of a baseball team ever again, you can't let this guy walk without getting anything in return.
Either a contract or, well, that's why I just figured they would pay him. I mean, I just figured they would pay him.
No, everything says that they, like I said, galaxies apart, which in baseball terms, that means there's no way they're getting a deal done. There's no way.
Well, then they have to trade him, yeah.
So to me, and all the rumors being the Cubs make the most sense to me. They really do. When you start thinking about the money that they have,
they're not going to trade him to an American League team.
Yeah, they're a National League team. You're not going to see them very often. Not only that, but now our GM also has ties to Boston. So there's a lot of things that are there. I mean, our GM was a part of the group that drafted Rafael Devers. So there's a lot of things that make a ton of sense here. I don't think it's that far-fetched. I think that the Cubs could actually get this done. I don't know that it gets done before spring training. I think that if something gets done, it's probably, if it's not it's probably a by the trade deadline thing. Maybe the Cubs are only 4 games out of the division by trade deadline, and the Cubs go and make a move like this.
Maybe that's Boston's move. They're just going to, they want people, desperate.
Yeah, I mean, you
get people like trying to throw prospects at them.
The problem then becomes for Boston, if you don't do this before the season starts, the problem then becomes you become the desperate one, because then teams know come the All-Star break, hey, look, I don't have to give you much because I could wait another 4 months. Yeah, I might miss the playoffs, but I could wait another 4 months and then I can get them without giving up anything. You know what I mean? So to me, it makes a ton of sense. It makes a ton of sense. And Jeremiah chimes in and says it's dangerous to be unloading prospects out of a farm system before your rebuild is finished. I think their moves had to be free agents. The Cubs are so rich with young talent right now. Their farm system is really, really good. The problem is they just went out of free agency and loaded the position where they had a bright young talent in Christian Hernandez. So you don't have room for him right now in your major league organization. You signed Seiya Suzuki, and he's there for at least another 4 years. You don't have room right now for Pete Crow Armstrong, unless you're telling me that you're not going to re-sign Ian Happ and you're going to let Ian Happ walk, which the guy just won a Gold Glove. I mean, I don't, and the Cubs have been in love with this kid since he came up. I was not an Ian Happ fan until the last 2 seasons, when I saw a whole lot of growth from Ian Happ. I thought Ian Happ was garbage. I hated watching him. I wanted them to trade him. I hated that they liked him over other guys that I thought should have had chances. But I don't think that they're letting Ian Happ walk. I think they're going to extend Ian Happ. I think you have Seiya Suzuki. You'll probably extend Suzuki if you needed to. But you've also got Brennan Davis out there, another outfield prospect who's ready to come up to the majors now. You don't have any room on your infield right now except for at third base. You don't have any third base prospects.
I think also, I think you and I know, especially in baseball, because it's such a hard sport. It's the hardest sport. Let's face it. I mean, we can argue with people on Facebook about it all day, but it is. And it takes
the farm system is low level.
None of these prospects are 100% going to be good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can almost, sometimes with some guys in football, you could say like that Quentin Jackson, he stays healthy, he's going to be good. But in baseball, you don't know if these prospects are going to stay good either. You know, Rafael Devers is good.
But when you're rebuilding, which the Red Sox clearly are, when you're in a rebuild, your low-level prospects, like Jeremiah says, that are years away, is what you want. You're rebuilding. It doesn't mean you're rebuilding to get better next year. It means you're rebuilding to be better in about 2 to 3 seasons. Like the Cubs, when they got what's his face, Theo, in 2012, they told you, hey, look, we're going to be bad for the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
But come 2015, or actually they said 2016, we're going to be contenders. Now, they were a year early and they ended up winning the World Series in 2016. But that's what teams that are rebuilding need to do. They need to think about 3 or 4 years down the line. They're not thinking about next year or even the year after.
Yeah, but what fan base wants, I mean,
none of them. Nobody ever wants to go through a rebuild.
5 years, then you're going to go through a rebuild every 4 or 5 years.
You don't have to go through a rebuild every 4 or 5 years. What you do is you build it up and you have something for, hopefully longer than what the Cubs just had with their young core, the 5 or 6 years they got out of them. You're hoping for something more sustainable, like what the Red Sox have just gone through for the last 20 years, what the Yankees have gone through for the last 30 years. You want to be able to replenish that. But then what you've got to do is once that young talent comes up, you've got to be willing to replenish that through free agency. You've got to be willing to spend a lot of money, unless you're going to go the Steve Cohen route and just purchase everybody to come play for you. You've got to let that young talent grow, and then you've got to build around it. Absolutely, you've got to build around it. But you've got to wait till that comes up. I think that it makes a ton of sense. You're giving up 2 prospects, 2 major league ready players right now, and you're getting back a generational talent. I think it makes a ton of sense.
I think it makes sense for the Cubs. I just don't see how it makes sense for Boston. I mean, fucking left-handed hitting third basemen are like fucking unicorns.
Does this hurt?
Tatis was 17 years old, and the man juices. Jeremiah.
So first
He
of
had
all,
some good comments.
stop with the
Yeah.
Tatis juices stuff because Tatis only juiced because he was injured and he was trying to get back for a playoff run.
Oh, okay. And Conor McGregor isn't juicing.
I don't know what the hell Conor McGregor's doing other than making commercials anymore.
Yeah,
Drives me nuts.
moving his whiskey to Mexico.
I know. I'd like to see him freaking come back and fight.
Yeah, me too.
But all right, man.
Would you want to with that much money? Would you want to get punched in the face? That is a vicious sport, man.
Dude,
And
every fight that he
his
makes,
leg
he
cut.
makes over $1 million. So if you're telling me that I can make for over $1 million, I'll let you punch me in the face right now.
Do you want your leg to crack in half again?
For $1 million, you could come break my leg for me right now.
This is tempting. I gotta look at my bank account.
50, if I said, hey, here, look, I came
You
to your
could break
house
my
right
leg.
now, and I
Yeah.
said, here's $1 million in this briefcase, you would let me do whatever I wanted to you to break your leg, punch
Break
you in the
my leg.
face.
Not
Yeah,
whatever you want to me. I don't know where this conversation is going, but I don't feel safe.
It's 2022. You should never feel safe.
Yeah.
All right. So we talked about the Bears. We talked about the White Sox. We talked about the Cubs. Before we get out of here, we got about 5 minutes left. You want to talk about the Bulls?
Oh, God.
Do they need to blow this up?
Yes. Yes. Yes, they do. I mean, what else are they? I mean,
what do you mean by
especially in
blowing it up?
basketball? Basketball more than any other sport other than hockey, I guess, where you have that really solid salary cap. I mean, yes, you have to.
But what do you mean by blow it up? Like, are you talking about getting rid of, like, cleaning house? Are you talking about getting rid of
DeMar?
Okay, so get rid of DeMar DeRozan. Are you getting rid of Zach?
Yes.
Really?
But you're kind of selling low.
Really?
You're kind of selling low.
So what are you keeping from this team?
You know, you keep Patrick.
Io?
Yeah, Io. Patrick Williams maybe becomes a thing. If you're developing him with other, rookies, maybe he does. Him missing last year really fucked up his development, man. I thought he was going to be a monster, really. And I'm not seeing that. It's just what else can you do? That's another thing to your point about Boston. If they wait for the season with Devers, the Bulls, other teams know they're desperate, that they're going to be desperate if they're going to trade everybody. Not everybody, but you have to trade major pieces, especially in basketball, to get a good pick, to maybe get one of those lottery picks. Plus, you'll have a lottery pick this year because you're going to bottom out. I mean, don't you have to do that? I mean, I don't see any other way out here unless they see something we don't. I mean, that's where you have to evaluate your own talent and say, can this be something that can turn the corner? Are we one piece away like people thought they were last year? Are they one piece away, Combs?
I thought that they had turned a corner with that win against the Bucks, and then that win against Detroit. I was like, oh wow! I said, maybe they're starting to turn this corner. They had won 3 out of 4 before that. Then it had turned into now they had won 5 out of 6. And then that 1-point loss to the Cavaliers.
Yeah. I'm like ugly losses.
Yeah, and I'm like, man, all right. So maybe this is just what this team is. Maybe this team is a 500 or below 500 type team. I don't know that I really.
I can't believe Lonzo Ball meant that much. So
that's what I'm wondering.
Dogging it, or the coaching isn't good enough, which I like Billy Donovan. I always have.
So that's what I'm wondering, though. Is that what the missing piece is? Like, are they just missing that centerpiece in Alonzo Ball? Or is this one of those things where, hey, look, you've got to build around Caruso and DeSunmo and Williams and trade Levine, DeRozan, and Vucevic?
I think they can trade Caruso too.
You think they're going to trade Caruso too?
So, if they can get something for him. I mean, I don't know what they're going to get for him though.
So Kobe White is going to be your shooting guard?
He's a good he's a good 6th or 7th, 8th man on a really good team.
But you're going to have Kobe White running your 2. I mean, look, we already have to deal with the Bears. And we have to deal with the Blackhawks, who look abysmal as well. we have two baseball teams in this town that the Sox vividly underperformed last season.
Yes.
The Cubs were atrocious until the second half of the season, and they kind of turned it around a little bit. But you're going to tell me that this Bulls team, which was the only team that I thought that we had.
Combs, this is a great time to start a podcast about Chicago sports.
Oh, hey, look, it's like being a fan, right? You have to go through the tough times to be able to enjoy the good times.
Yeah.
Right. You can't just be like, oh, hey, look, what team's in the Super Bowl this year? That's the team that I'm a fan of. Like, you can't just do that every year. Like, that's not okay. I mean, that's what Drew likes to do. As Drew chimes in and says, "Happy New Year, Johnny." Drew's got about 7 teams that he roots for, and that's fine, you know.
There's
but
people like that. My
if
brother-in-law's like that.
If you want to be a team, a fan of a team, you've got to be able to go through the lows. And sometimes you got to be, I mean, look, there are fans out there, like the Bears fans out there right now who are judging Justin Fields based off of the record this year. If you're basing Justin Fields and whether or not you like him or don't like him based off the fact that they're 3-13, then you just don't understand football, and that's fine. That's fine. If that's the type of fan you are, I understand that not everybody understands the business side of things. I understand that not everybody can see the entire game, and not everybody understands the game completely. But you can be a fan of a team and see progression in bad seasons.
Yeah.
Right? Like the Cubs had a lot of progression last year too, right? In the second half of the season, their pitching staff came out strong. They started hitting the ball. They started doing a lot of things well. The Bears, they're doing I see a lot of things. Look, even though they're 3-13, I've seen a lot of progression from Justin Fields this year that you didn't see last year. Like, there's a lot of things that you can do with that.
And you probably got a safety in a corner, stuff like that. Yeah, I see what you're talking about.
So the problem is now, like, the Bulls were the one team in Chicago we were supposed to be able to lean on this year. We were supposed to, and they started out this season where they were winning games against really good teams. And last year, that was the problem. They couldn't beat any really good teams. So I was like, oh, great. If they start beating some really good teams, we're going to be able to watch some really good basketball in Chicago. And then it just all fell apart. And then we find out that Lonzo Ball might not even come back this season. Then we find out that there's turmoil in the locker room. DeMar DeRozan wants out. And it's all just falling apart. We have nothing.
This time last year, they were one of the better teams in the league. DeMar DeRozan, the people were talking MVP. Like, this time last year and deep into January, they were good.
Drew chimes in and says, I've been a fan of my teams for decades, all 12 of them. There's only 4 major sports, Drew. I kid, Drew.
He's a fan of the Patriots, the Yankees,
No, he's a White Sox guy.
Good.
But he likes, I think college football. I think he likes like half of the SEC, half of the Big Ten. I think he's. I think that's where we got him. We just like to kid Drew. As long as he's a White Sox fan, you don't care, right? Yeah. So, all right, man. Well, that's about all the time we got for now. Again, Thursday night live special Man Hour Chicago coming to you live from Bourbon Street. Come see us out at Bourbon Street, out here on the South Side, 115th and Kedzie. Come down. It's going to be a fantastic time. Southside Bags will be there with our guy, Johnny Torres. We'll be throwing. We'll be a part of the tournament. We'll be doing all sorts of stuff. So come out, see us. It'll be a great time. We thank you guys for joining us. Thank everybody for chiming in. We saw Jeremiah in there. We saw Drew in there. Johnny Torres was in there.
Luke came on.
Luke G joined the show for a little while. We had Lions fans in the chat. We had all sorts of good things going on. So appreciate you guys. Come check us out live at Bourbon Street on Thursday. Till then, Man Hour Nation, rise up.